This is very exciting. I'm making a one-off Nempnett Thrubwell. The reason being is that someone asked me whether it would be possible for them to order a ready-made one that would count up to 12 hours rather than the minute, because normally Nempnett Thrubwells just count down from an hour to nothing for timing food and such like, whereas she wanted it to let them know, I think, reading between the lines, bringing to an end a drinking session possibly. Maybe speaking out of turn, I don't know. So she came up with her own version of the sign, which is great. Then I spent ages trying to how on earth to work out, as I thought, well, Nempnett Thrubwell, time 60 minutes, no big deal to make that into 12 hours, but if you think about it, it really is. And I even got to the stage of looking up crystals and calculating the crystals to go in the existing clock movement I use that would be 60 times slower, but they don't actually make one. And it was all getting a bit complicated. And I thought about different gears, and what I came up with in the end was an alarm movement, which I had out of some old alarm clocks I'd bought from Ikea. My battery's about to run flat, so I'm drilling out things. I'm going to fit that together, cutting out the wood. I will see you once the batteries are charged. The next day, and a fully charged battery, both myself and my camera. And the amazing thing about this, once I thought I'd add it to the CAD drawing that I've got of the Nempnett Thrubwell, just to get a better idea of how it could fit. I mean, there's a picture, so rather than this little bit here, it would be that sort of. And most amazingly, it's one of those things, wouldn't believe it, but basically on the back of this there's the time set and there's the alarm set that moves the little hand round. That to absolute precisely, if I stick the gear I already had designed onto this and turn that over, keeping the centres exactly the same, I hasten to add, then these three gears line up perfectly. Now the chances of that happening is just phenomenally small. It's absolutely unbelievable. So I can use this and that gear and then that gear, but not onto the centre of the minute adjuster, but onto the back of the alarm movement. It's absolutely fantastic, and I'll spray this brass so it can be seen, because obviously this needs to be out, sticking above the enclosure, so I've got room for this gear. It'll look lovely. That's just so amazing. And the other great thing is that the stain has dried overnight on the nib and the spacer and the enclosure. So what I'll do now is it's already got quite a nice sheen, but I'm going to buff this up and I'll come back to you. Instructions, you say? Bah, humbug. Other than a couple of cursory glances to remind me of millimetres, I'm going to go it alone and see whether I can remember how to put it together. I've already made several mistakes. I was gluing this side bit that holds the air pump and put the jig on the wrong bit and glued it in, but luckily the glue hadn't dried so I could get that apart. I've built the flickering lamp, so that's nice. It's nice not having to do 20 at once, but just flittering around doing different things. Luckily, when I ordered the parts for the last 20, which I finished last week or something, I ordered plenty more parts, extras, so I've now got, thankfully, enough bits other than these, well, not wretched, but these rotary switches that, with the brass key, switches it on and off. And whenever I have to do other projects and things, I inevitably find that I need one of these, and I never have them because I ordered 20 to build 20 kits. It is so annoying. So I'm pushing the boat out this time, and I have ordered an extra 10 or 20 just to have flitting about for a rainy day, of which we seem to have lots. They're very useful, these. I know I've mentioned them before, but they're 12, well, multiple pole. This one's one pole, or is it? I can't even see. No, this is 4 pole, 3-way, or you can get 2 pole, 6-way, or 1 pole, 12-way. But basically, if it's 2 pole, it's as though you had 2 switches linked together, doing the same thing. If it's 1 pole, you've got 1 switch, and the ways are how many different positions they can have. and these all come with a multiple of 12 positions, and they also come with a little ring that you can slot in to adjust just how many or how far round the switch can turn, which means in effect that you can put it onto the first little notch and then it'll just switch either on or off, just a 2-position switch. So really useful, hence the fact I'm going to get a load more. Now what I'm going to do is stop talking and get all the copper parts assembled around here. So it's very enjoyable. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again, because these Munson rings, which are made of brass and you can store it readily available, are absolutely fantastic. They are just epitomise steampunk Victorian engineering. Fantastic. You can get them with these bases, but they make them stand off quite a long way. I think it's an M10 thread, so they're universal, at least in the UK. And they also cost a lot, these bits. So what I found, and what I've done, because I didn't need them standing off that much, for the Nempnett Thrubwell, is to purchase a load of these zinc-plated M10 bolts. They are perfect. I mean, this is a slightly different one. We can see here. I've just screwed those on with some nice big brass washers, but the bottom one, because it's in the thick wood, is rebated. So it pushes through there. Nice washer. And this one is a 15mm ring for 15mm pipe. I'm just going to tighten it like that. They just look so great. So that holds the bottom of the pipe in and supports the pump a bit, and then these two hold the horn, slightly smaller. What's that, 28 and 32 or something, I don't know. Very exciting. Right, this is good. That's the gear that's going to go underneath here. This is now sprayed up and I've soldered the wires on for the switch and the power supply. And this, you kept thinking, this is a very odd shape. It can't be a very good quality one because it's too small. Then of course I realised it's simply the same size as all other clock movements, except it hasn't got the battery holder on, because being an alarm clock, it needed, well, this alarm clock worked with a little motor that would spin round and run a dinger for some bells on top of the clock. So I'm going to use the original battery holder there. So that's two 1.5 volts, but paralleled up. So it's 1.5 volts but twice the current, which I don't need. So one of those can be ignored. I probably should have left something over it. Never mind. Just means the clock will run on longer. So the clock's going to be running off these two endlessly, and then the air pump, which is now installed in there, is going to be running off the normal 6-volt plug-in 4 lots of AA battery holder thing, if that makes any sense. And I was thinking, I'm going to fix this down. I've got these very small screws. Obviously I need it spaced off the base, this wooden front piece, enough for this gear to fit. These two turn beautifully. I thought, I know, let's go and design an interestingly shaped steampunk style thing. A very short time after, using the 2D design, using parts of the drawings I already had of the clock face and lining everything up, and the lovely tool that draws a circle between 2 points and you just drag out, which is lovely, I managed to come up with this, and already I'm so pleased with the look of that. That just looks, to me at least, a sort of steampunk design. Some call it a gift, I'd call it a curse in mine. So that's going to be cut out of 5mm acrylic, and then I'll spray that up and take the dog for a walk. Oh, by the way, these two spaced, this shape just allows room for the gear underneath the alarm, and this is just going to hopefully clear the next gear. One of those things that are again reminiscent of old machinery, where you'd have the overall diameter of a gear, just clearing it, framing it nicely. That's what I'm trying to say. Looks nice. Right, let's just see whether it fits. Yeah, alright, and those are all good bits and pieces. They serve multiple purposes. So that's going to go there, that's going to sit on top. It's also, another very important thing it's going to do, is these are the longest screws I've got that are small enough to fit through these two fixing holes, as one either side. So now, these screws weren't going to be long enough to fit through this and the spacer and the 3mm front and still have room for a nut. Whereas doing it this way, it means, I've just realised another problem it solves. The screw's now long enough to fit through here and through there, so I can have a nut on the back of that. These two holes line up with the two holes that fix the dial in place. And also the dial needs to be space forward as well to allow for the extra depth required for this. That's going to help that as well. How lovely. Right, I'll go and get this beautiful shape sprayed up. Here we go, dog's walked. This is sprayed up beautifully, so that is going to go like that. That's that curve. This gear will sit in there, so that's that curve. The clock movement will sit on there, and then the dial, as you can see, it's been cunningly changed. No longer does it say 0 down in increments. It now is a clock. And I thought, because obviously the alarm clock is a clock, and it just makes sense that you can keep that running all the time and just switch the alarm on and off as and when you want it. And I was thinking, well, clocks have 12 at the top. Wouldn't it be interesting not to have 12 at the top? So I've put 12 down here where the 0 originally was, so it'll still tell the time, but it'll be very interesting. And I do love playing around with ideas with time and clocks. Very interesting to see how quickly you learn to tell the time when 12 isn't upright and you have to actually count the numbers or whatever. Interesting. I'll get this assembled. Now, to fix this gear onto the back, this is when I realised that this was actually perfect, as though it had been made to measure. There's these two little prongs that stick out on the back, and there's these two knobs, and they have a little a round hole with a flat on either side, and they just click over onto a peg, a spring peg. And originally I was thinking, well, I could cut this out to fit on the original one, but it's so small. I thought, why not just use this? I'm going to keep the time adjust one. It's going to poke through a hole in the front panel so that you can adjust it through this hole from the back. Why not choose the equivalent one that's moulded accurately and precisely to fit on that little pin through there? I'm drilling this out to 5.1mm. Absolutely perfect. Oh, look at that. That is amazing. I've drilled it out to 5 because this is measured as 5, having laser cut it to something or other. But it was just too tight. 5.1. Luckily I had a 5.1mm drill bit, and it just, I've roughed up, I must stop going on about it, but it's just so satisfying. I've roughed this up with some wet and dry, so I can glue that onto there with super glue. And then, like I say, the fact that this centre, the original hole in the middle was something like that. That and that are identical distances around this pivot point. It's unbelievable. You could not make it up. It is brilliant. So exciting. Now I just scratched the paint on that new bit, so I'm having to just put another light coat on that because this moving around and fiddling about with it scratched a bit off. So get that done and then get it together and stop talking about it. It's just so exciting. Whilst I'm waiting for the paint to dry on that spacer, what I've realised I can do is to, because that's the 5mm bit, the space is going to be sitting here, so I need to have two spacers through which to fix the dial with M3 screws. Nice long ones, so they go right through. Now I've measured how deep this is, and it's 16mm. That's 16mm, so I need two spacers with an M3 hole through the middle, 16mm deep. I haven't done any machining of brass for a while. I feel some machining of brass coming on. I've got this, I think this is 8mm diameter. I just can't resist it. Right, having spent quite a long time looking for these two little bits amongst all the debris, I think it might be time to do a little bit of tidying over here, all the swarf and everything. I've got the centre drill in, so, well, not yet obviously, Tighten that, switch it on, nothing's going to fall. So the centre drill just starts the hole completely centred, surprise surprise. If I was doing this properly, like other reputable machining channels do, they would have drilled the hole first and then they would have had a lovely little piece of metal they would have held in the end while they parted it off, but no, not here. Nastiness goes on here. So now we've got it centred, and then the 3mm drill bit. Look at this, I finally got it together. There are the turn bits, the spacers, there's the 5mm bit for the back. I've glued the gear there onto the bit that sticks through. Look, it turns beautifully. Absolutely fabulous. I can't tell you, well, I'm going to try and tell you how fabulously happy and pleased I am about this. Because basically, it means that the Nempnett Thrubwell, all the basic bits and pieces stay the same, and just by a couple of other holes and bits and pieces I can turn this into a clock, an alarm clock, or a clock without an alarm. Mind you, why you'd want a horn and an air pump without some sort of alarm, I don't know, it fails me, but that is fantastic. Now the next thing to do, to work out where I need to put the alarm pointer, I need to wire it up so it clicks, but I'm not sure quite what that means. So I need to get all this wired up, and I've got lots of lovely wires. There's a yellow, a black and a red one. And in the base, there's all sorts of other colour wires. It's so exciting. I've got the hand set up, I think, correctly. And the battery's in, so it's now 12 minutes past 8. So easy to tell the time. Another day, a cool light of morning. There's the wiring. I forgot to film that yesterday. Just a little bit of Vera board. There's a resistor for the LED. It's just handy doing it like this because you just glue that down and it gives you a handy place. There we are, a handy place to be able to fix wires to. Also, it's quite handy that these two Munson rings can grip the side. It's handy. What I realised this morning though, looking at it, and I was having doubts, then my son looked at it and laughed at it rudely but constructively, which that brass bit just doesn't look right. It's just too flat. So I've been umming and ahhing, doing a design on the computer, adding drawings and ideas, and I thought, hang on a minute, before I do anything like that, here are the ones that the normal Nempnett Thrubwell has, cut out of metallic card, which is really quite rigid, and I lay that on there and it looks perfect. You see the gears through these bottom holes and all the rest of it, so brilliant, hence the fact I'm taking this to pieces again, so I can loosen the front and get that fitted on. Also, I'm definitely going to find some way of extending the time control because it's really fiddly reaching in through this hole here, so I'll see if I've got some rod or something I can glue onto the back of this prong. That's better, much better. Well, I'm happy with that. So, and also I've decided to do, rather than having to wait for another load of these to arrive, I'm just want to get this finished and done. So I've got only managed to put 10 of the Nempnett Thrubwell kits together because I haven't got 10 of the other trigger mechanisms, which I'm still waiting for as well. So I've got these unpackaged, so I'm just going to nick one of them, and I've got some more spare parts so I can finally get this all completed and get it dispatched.